This is a video demonstrating two projects for all ages that will later be turned into greeting cards. For this setup, you will need two stations, a dry station for coloring and a wet station for the ink or paint. You should also have an area designated for the wet projects to finish drying. Also, depending on how many volunteers you have, you may need to limit how many participants are working at a time. Starting in the dry station, first you will need watercolor paper. For this demonstration, we use 9 by 12 paper and split it into halves. The brand of paper does not matter, but make sure it is watercolor paper. We split each paper into halves so that each participant can take a half with them and we can keep a half for the purpose of making the cards. Then you will need crayons. Any brand of crayons works, but we recommend the brands used here due to their vibrant colors, which will show up better in the final product. Now is where participants can color any designs they choose onto their two pieces of paper. The designs can be different and the person can then choose the one they want to take with them. It doesn't matter how simple or complex the design is, and their drawing abilities are irrelevant. The drawings can be done portrait or landscape style. Also, it's important to note white crayon will show up in the final product. After the participant finishes their design or drawing, write the first name and age on the back of the paper in pen or pencil. Now we move to the wet station. The kids can help here, but the majority of work done in this station requires a trained volunteer. You should put newspaper or plastic tablecloth down for the sake of an easy cleanup. You will need at least one plastic tub depending on how many volunteers you have and how many projects you want to do at a time. First, we will demonstrate method 1, which uses ink crystals. The volunteer may want to use rubber gloves as the ink stains skin for days. These are the ink crystals. They are relatively expensive, but the colors on the finished product are more vibrant than method 2, which we will describe later. It is extremely important that each volunteer learns how to use these appropriately and understands the correct amount to apply as to not waste any crystals. This is the size of the bottle, and we recommend poking a small hole in the top. This will come in handy later. You will also need a small spray bottle of water. We recommend making a color chart of each of the individual crystal ink colors. Now is when a volunteer sprinkles a small amount of up to 3 different colored ink crystals chosen by the participant. A small amount is key, which is why we recommend small holes in the cap, because when the crystals get wet, the color spreads. Also, since the crystals are expensive, it is best to use them sparingly and in sections on the paper. Don't mix the crystals, it will mud the colors. Also, if they choose dark colors, definitely use a small amount so as to not overpower the other colors or the crayon design. Once the crystals are sprinkled on, the participant can take a spray bottle and wet the paper. It is important that they don't soak the paper, which is why it is best to use a small bottle. A volunteer should still be supervising. You will notice the crayon acts as a resistant and a cool design is produced. Next, the volunteer uses a hairdryer and can spread the water to the edges of the paper to create a cool effect, as well as begin drying the ink. You may have to tilt the paper and dry it at various angles to do this. After, the 2 designs the participant made can be set aside in a designated drying area. It is more important that the design the participant is keeping is dry, so that when they leave the event, they can take it with them. The one you are keeping can continue drying the remainder of the event. Now we will demonstrate method 2. It requires the same setup in the wet station as method 1, but we are not using ink crystals. Instead, we are using basic watercolor paints. This is the less expensive method. You can use tubes of watercolor paint and put them on a tray as we have done, or use palettes of dry watercolors. The brand doesn't matter, but we recommend Crayola watercolor palettes. You will also need cups of water and paintbrushes. Then the participants can paint using water, brushes, and the palette and paint over the crayon design. Again, the crayon acts as a resistant. A volunteer is not needed to do the painting, but supervision is recommended. You can dry the painting that the participant is keeping with a hairdryer, but to save time, the one you are saving can be set aside in a designated drying area. For method 1 and 2, you may want to wipe down the tub after each project. Lastly, make sure you, your volunteers, and the participants have fun. Any questions, refer to the written instructions. Thanks for watching.